we're witnessing a huge sell-off today. And all you got to do is just glance at your account and you'll see that everything across the board is pretty much down. Bitcoin today saw a pretty substantial drop, and I'll show you a point to look for on the chart there, but we have a lot to go over this video, so let's get right into it. If you guys like these videos, consider hitting the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and let's get started. First off, we're seeing a large amount of liquidations, and I have a theory that because yesterday wasn't necessarily a sell the news event, nor was it really a buy the news event, although Bitcoin did hit a 2-year high at $49,000 before selling off from there, I think people might have been expecting a run-up the day after the ETFs were approved and trading. We saw a large amount of liquidations. Over $90 million worth of Bitcoin positions have been liquidated in the last 24 hours, with the majority of these being longs. Obviously, we're seeing a sell-off. $76 million worth of long positions, 14 million in short positions, and almost 30 million worth of those long positions have come in the last hour alone as of this article, as Bitcoin's dip continues to accelerate. I think the market was anticipating a little bit of a run up today, and people playing with leverage got surprised. Now I'll leave that article down below for you, but that was the main point of that article. And I have another one I want to show you, and I went over this probably a couple weeks ago. And this article mentions previous landmark events like Coinbase's IPO, the ProShares future-based ETF. These released at market tops, but there's a difference here. And while Crypto Quant predicted last month, and I talked about this, that they anticipate Bitcoin going down to 32,000, with the ETF approval being a sell the news event. And while it may turn out to be a sell the news event, I don't anticipate Bitcoin going down to 32,000. And I think part of their reasoning for this drop is because of, like I said, Coinbase's IPO and the Bitcoin futures ETF seeing a decline after those were both released. However, Coinbase's IPO was in 2021 of April. The futures-based Bitcoin ETF, BITO, came out in October 2021. What was that timeline? That was the top of the 2020 halving. The top of this cycle's halving should be somewhere in 2025. The dates, the timelines just don't match up. That said, could we see a pullback? Could we see a pull into the 30,000s? If so, I'd be a heavy buyer, even starting in the high 30s for Bitcoin. And maybe we do see a short sell-off over the rest of this month or something, but the reality still remains that this is still just the beginning of the bull cycle. And I'm still extremely confident that Bitcoin will end up much higher in 2024 and subsequently 2025. Next up, I want to look at Bitcoin now. A lot of people might be fearful here. A lot of people might be worried that what's going on? Why are we seeing such a dramatic sell-off? We're going to continue falling back. And looking at the chart, there's nothing surprising here. We're still following this upward channel. I think there's a good likelihood, at least for the short term, that we bounce at around 42,000, which is also where our 50 MA and the support line on this ascending channel lies. And Crypto Quant from here is calling for another roughly 30% drop, which from our recent peak would bring us to a 36 or so % drop. And while I think at this point in the cycle it's pretty unlikely, we do have to be open to that possibility. Now a lot of people are talking about the last halving cycle in 2020 when we saw that drop right before the halving. I don't think it's going to play out like that. I think we're going to see more of a 2012 or 2016 halving. In 2020 we did have a once in a lifetime event that caused a V-shaped recovery, and if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have seen that sharp of a decline. But let me know what you guys think. Are we going to see roughly another 30-something% drop from here? And if we do see that, would you be a heavy buyer? Now I got to talk about CleanSpark. We are so close to filling that gap. We're looking at only a 5% drop more from here. Now I personally think this gap is going to get filled. I would be a buyer right at this point. There's always the possibility that everyone's ready to buy up this gap and it doesn't completely fill, but I personally do anticipate this gap filling. That said, I think it's great to be buying right here. I do anticipate we're going to try to hold our 50 MA. Now I also want to touch on MicroStrategy. If you go on the webull comments, it is just like bearish across the board, not a single bull in there. And people that are saying it's going to go to 200, people that are saying it's going to 0. Michael Saylor is selling, this is going to go bankrupt. Just as some bullish predictions can get quite out there, get a little bit out of hand, so can some bearish predictions. Now we've already witnessed a 30% drop on MicroStrategy. I've been a buyer for the last week, 2 weeks or so, just slowly adding here and there on pullbacks. Now I do want to point out that we did fill a gap, but we have another gap in the 380, 390 area, and this would take MicroStrategy around 47%, 50% roughly from its top. And while it's certainly possible we can sell off a little bit more, I think even right now is a great time to be slowly adding, being patient though, because we definitely could fall a bit more. We could come down towards our trend line, this ascending support level, which is also conveniently where the 200 MA is trending at right now. Let me know guys, do you think MicroStrategy will lose another 20% and get to filling that gap? And while everyone is, fearful, panicking and everything else, I think this is a great chance for the Bitcoin miners to fill their gaps before we can go on our next leg up. Those gaps to me seem like some dead weight that we need to lose. and we have been seeing gaps getting filled across the board, which is great. And here's an example. I mentioned Sphere 3D on my Discord. We just filled our gap right around $2. I am anticipating a bounce here. This is also right around the 200 MA. One thing with Sphere 3D compared to some of the other Bitcoin miners, MicroStrategy for example, is we still haven't seen our golden cross yet. But you know, Sphere 3D is now 50%, over 50% from its top, its recent top anyways. And there was a lot of people, you know, looking for pullbacks, looking for times to buy. And rather than buying right here when there was a lot of hype, when it was overbought, when everyone was asking, should I buy some Sphere 3D? Back when it was trading in the high threes, you know, I think now is a great opportunity to be adding to some Sphere 3D. I personally still think we are going to have one more rally before the narrative shifts about the halving, where miners are going to be getting half the rewards. Rewards are getting cut in half. I haven't really seen that narrative pushed around lately, but maybe I'm wrong. I think we are going to see one more rally for the miners before we get to that point. We have roughly 2 to 3 months. But of course, if Bitcoin continues selling off, these miners can definitely continue selling off as well. To me, this is definitely the time to be a buyer. Now, one thing that's a bit concerning is looking at Btbt's chart, Bit Digital. We did see a short-lived pump when Ethereum was popping. The Bitcoin ETFs were approved and people were starting to look at Ethereum as the next potential play. Well, Btbt started performing very well. However, now we're seeing a sell-off along with the other miners. We just saw a break of our ascending trend, and I do anticipate the possibility of some more pullback for Btbt. One area to watch for is the 280 level. See how we hold up on the 200 MA. Hopefully we don't continue selling off here and turn this golden cross into a death cross in the near future. Right now, despite this trend being broken, I'm still very bullish on Btbt. Ethereum's been hitting new yearly highs, and I do expect that to continue. And also for now, we're still bullish. We're still above the 50 and 200 MA. We, like I said, just recently saw our golden cross. And I do think that if we pull back just a little bit more, we are going to utilize this previous resistance as a support. It was used as a support previously, used as a resistance before as well. I am anticipating a bounce here at the very least. Also, we had CPI come out yesterday. That caused a little bit of fear in the market. But PPI came out as well here today, and we had a 1% read. The forecast was a 1.3, but we saw a 1%. However, this was an increase month over month. And looking at CPI, it just really doesn't want to go into the twos. I think the market was hoping to see the high twos. The forecast was a 3.2 and we got a 3.4. So we did see an increase here on CPI. But overall, I do expect inflation to continue slowly trending down. There will be bounces along the way. And we will still see the Fed start cutting rates more towards the middle of 2024. But it's definitely been a crazy day today, guys. Let me know what you've been buying out there. I love days like this when it's just a sea of red across the board, and you got to really look long term here. If you believe in these companies long term, if you believe late 2024, 2025 are going to be much higher in price, you take advantage of these deep dark red days. But let me know what you guys are doing out there. I hope you have a good weekend. It is going to be a 3-day weekend, so get ready for that. That might be another reason we're selling off a bit here. People don't want to hold over a 3-day weekend, worried that Bitcoin may drop even more in price. But let me know how you're feeling about today. Are you feeling bad? Are you feeling excited? Thanks as always for watching, guys, and have a good weekend.